The Sahara Desert is one of the most underutilized places on Earth. At 9.2 million square kilometers, it's comparable in size to the entire country of Europe or China. Europe has a population of around 750 million, and China around 1.4 billion. With extremely high temperatures, scarce rainfall, and arid, rocky terrain, only 2.5 million people live here, a population roughly equivalent to that of Jamaica. But aside from humans, there's hardly any flora or fauna that dares to inhabit this vast area. So, if almost no one lives here, why not build an artificial lake? After all, this was all countryside before, as our parents would say. Between 14,000 and 5,000 years ago, the Sahara was green, a period marked by abundant rainfall and a more humid climate. The flora and fauna were so diverse that fossil evidence has been found of animals such as giraffes, elephants, hippos, rhinos, tortoises, antelopes, and baboons, among many others. At the end of this period, around 5 millennia ago, humans gradually abandoned the desert for regions with more reliable water supplies, such as the Nile Valley and Mesopotamia, where they gave rise to the first complex societies. Therefore, it wouldn't be surprising to return to our origins and repopulate this desert, especially since, in several thousand years, the Sahara will be green again. We could wait for that to happen. Or perhaps, given that the future is inevitable, some people have wondered, why not bring it forward? The concept of creating a Saharan Sea dates back to the 19th century, when a Scottish businessman, Donald Mackenzie, proposed in 1877 to build a canal and divert water from the Atlantic Ocean through Cape Juby, taking advantage of the fact that at the time it was not part of any country, to reach the El Juf region, which today lies between Mauritania and Mali. This would create an inland sea of approximately 155,000 square kilometers, a size comparable to the entire country of Uruguay, allowing for commercial navigation and agriculture in the surrounding area. He also intended to connect it, via another canal, to the Niger River, thus providing access to the markets and resources of East Africa. There was just one small problem. The Scotsman had never traveled to the area, and he believed that the El Juf region was located 61 meters below sea level, having read about other similar desert basins located below sea level near Cape Juby. But the El Juf region is actually located at an altitude of 320 meters above sea level. So, obviously, the project couldn't be carried out. Around that same time, a similar project was conceived, this time in the Tunisian region. The key figures were the French geographer Rader and the French diplomat Lesseps, who a few years earlier had led and promoted the creation of the Suez Canal. They intended to build a canal from the Gulf of Gabes to the Shat el Fajaj to flood the entire area with water from the Mediterranean Sea, since they had discovered that this whole area was 40 meters below sea level. This project would allow maritime transport, as well as positively alter the climate, transforming the arid Sahara region into a more fertile one. They also argued that it would improve the weather throughout Europe, so the French government supported them financially. However, there was a problem. Some 7,000 square kilometers of the area they wanted to flood were not below sea level. They stumbled over the same stone as the Scotsman, and the project had to be cancelled. But despite these failed attempts, a deep and extensive place does exist in the Sahara Desert. It's just that until now, they hadn't been able to find it. The Qattara Depression is the second deepest point in all of Africa at minus 133 meters. In fact, it is so deep that it far surpasses the deepest point in Europe, the Caspian Sea, at minus 28 meters, and the deepest point in all of the Americas, Laguna del Carbon in Argentina, at minus 105 meters. And it is truly extensive, since with an approximate surface area of 19,000 square kilometers, it is comparable in size to the entire country of El Salvador, where some 6.5 million people live. But here, the story is different. In this entire area, there are only 3 settlements. The Kara Oasis, with 363 inhabitants, Ain al-Qattara, and the Mogra Oasis, for which I can't find population data, but which are surely very sparsely populated. With virtually no population barriers in this entire area, the 13th largest lake on the planet, and the 4th largest in Africa, could be created here. And unlike other large depressions around the world, the Qattara Depression is very conveniently located near the sea, as it is only 55 kilometers from the Mediterranean. With so many advantages, the English geologist John Ball studied it in detail in 1927, taking into account factors such as the water flow needed to fill it and aspects such as salinity, and suggested that it could be used to generate hydroelectric power. However, the project languished for about 4 decades, until the German hydraulic engineer Friedrich Bassler arrived in 1964, and things finally got serious. For 9 years, Bassler was responsible for planning and financing the project, working for the Egyptian government. To fill the lake with Mediterranean water, a 55-kilometer-long, 60-meter-deep canal had to be built. For comparison, the Suez Canal is 193 kilometers long and about 23 meters deep. However, given the arid nature of the region, the water would evaporate easily. Bassler precisely calculated the necessary water flow to balance evaporation and maintain a constant water level in the lake. Furthermore, this is one of the project's key strengths. Because a constant water flow was required to fill the lake, it allowed for the generation of hydroelectric power in a very stable manner. Bassler's team planned to build the world's first hydrosolar power plant there, aiming to rival the energy generated by the Aswan Dam, also built in Egypt during those years on the Nile River. While the Aswan Dam has an installed capacity of 2,100 megawatts, the Qattara project, with its 3 installations, would have had an installed capacity of 5,800 megawatts. Let me explain. This means that Qattara would have been the power plant with the largest installed capacity in the world, since until 1971, the largest installed capacity was 4,500 megawatts from a hydroelectric plant in the Soviet Union. The project was extremely ambitious, but it had a problem: the high cost of financing such a large-scale megaproject. Furthermore, it was necessary to deactivate the millions of unexploded ordnance left over from World War II in northern Egypt. So Bassler, in desperation, came up with a solution to expedite the process and cut costs: blow everything up with nuclear explosions. He must have thought, if it worked for the Americans, it'll work for me too. The German continued his research and concluded that 213 nuclear explosions were needed, each with a yield of 1.5 megatons, 100 times the power of the atomic bomb used on Hiroshima. Quite something. It would be necessary to evacuate some 25,000 people from the surrounding area. This might seem like a crazy idea, but it was common practice at the time. There was such a thing as peaceful nuclear explosions, abbreviated P&E, and the United States and the Soviet Union were obviously the most enthusiastic about it. Under the Plowshare program, the United States proposed projects such as expanding the Panama Canal or building a new canal through Nicaragua, but these were never implemented. However, they did conduct 27 nuclear tests over 11 years, and in 1962, one of them in particular, called Storax Sedan, was carried out to determine the feasibility of quickly and economically excavating large quantities of earth and rock, just as Bassler wanted. The operation was a success, creating the largest artificial crater in the United States, and the radioactive fallout from the test affected more Americans than any other nuclear test. And the Soviets weren't going to be outdone. Instead of just 27 nuclear tests, they conducted a total of 239. And one of them, in 1965, is particularly relevant to our discussion: the Chagan nuclear test, which turns out to be an identical copy of Storax Sedan. Thus, this also obviously caused an immense amount of radioactive material to be dispersed into the atmosphere. However, unlike the American project, the crater was created with the intention that the nearby Chagan River would fill it with water, thus creating an artificial lake, Lake Chagan, in a manner similar to what the German scientist Bassler had planned. Nevertheless, this lake, with a volume of 10 million cubic meters, remains radioactive to this day, primarily due to radioisotopes. Despite warnings from the authorities, local residents fish in this atomic lake, and some even venture to bathe in it. Returning to the Qattara project, the Egyptian government was perhaps a bit more sensible and level-headed than these fishermen and bathers, and categorically refused to use this nuclear solution proposed by Bassler, thus ending the project. However, interest in creating this inland sea in the Sahara remains, as it would help resolve the economic, demographic, and ecological tensions of the region. Currently, feasibility studies for the project are still underway, and it's possible that it will one day become a reality, although without nuclear explosions. What do you think? Do you believe creating this artificial lake in the Sahara is a good idea? Share your answer in the comments and subscribe to see more videos like this.